Good morning and happy Friday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupied Fantasy. You could find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's MLB DraftKings and FanDuel. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. If you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. As a member, you get access to the model you'll see me using throughout the video. We also have a single and multi lineup. We also have a daily plug article where we will feature our favorite bats, stats, slate, as well as a private Discord server full of seasoned DFS pros to help you improve your game. But yeah, let's get into it here. We got 12 games to get through. Going to do my best to keep it under a that goes. But I got Corey Seager pulled up here. He's actually the top bat today in the OF index model, which isn't really surprising to me. The Rangers have one of the higher totals on the slate. They're a really solid stack here against Trevor Williams and the Nationals. Williams, who's been in the league for a while, historically has had trouble with left-handed hitters, and Seager has been one of the best lefties in baseball. We see that 1040 OPS, hitting 370. Average isn't really conducive of fantasy points, but plenty of home runs, RBIs, getting a lot of. So while he is expensive on both sites, I think it's warranted that he's rating as the top bat on the board. But I don't really like to go just play by play. We're going to go game by game, and I'll have a notepad file pulled up here where I will keep track of my favorite pitchers and stacks. So at the end of the video, I can kind of give a high level overview and let you guys know exactly where I stand as far as the slate is concerned. So, first game on the board tonight, we have Jamison Taillon and the Chicago Cubs taking on Carlos Rodon and the New York Yankees. A sight for sore eyes is Carlos Rodon as a Yankee fan here. He did just come off a start in the minors where he went, I think, 4 and 2/3 innings. So there's a chance he goes. And I think he's in really good form. He seems to be striking out a lot of guys, not allowing many base runners. But at 9,100 on DK, 9,300 over on FanDuel, he's going to be a little bit difficult to get to. I think he does have upside. I mean, if they are going to let him go here, we hear that he's not on some sort of pitch count. I wouldn't mind him. I do really like the matchup for him, but there are some pitch count concerns versus the Cubs, so proceed with some caution. But it is a good matchup. It's good to see him back. But on a 12-game slate, I don't know necessarily that we need to get to him there. As for Jamison Taillon, former Yankee, not the best spot for him here today. I don't think I really need to get to the Yankees offense aggressively, but they are ranking as one of the higher um, stacks in our OF index model here, just outside of the top five, which is a little bit surprising to me, given how inconsistent they've been. But I mean, Taillon has struggled against left-handed hitters. The Yankees don't have a ton of lefties. But they do have some good ones. I mean, Rizzo's been struggling lately, but Billy McKinney's been surprisingly effective. It sounds like Jake Bauers is going to be out tonight. If he is, I do think the Yankee stack probably slides down in terms of rating a little bit here. Get lefties. I don't mind Yankees bats, but it's just tough for me to really prioritize them as things stand. But keep an eye on that lineup. If Bowers is in, maybe they get a couple extra lefties in there, then there would be somewhat appealing for now. I'd probably rather just use them as one-offs. But Taillon, 346 ISO allowed to left-handed hitters this season. So if this is a righty-heavy lineup, I still don't have interest in Taillon, but that's probably going to take me off the Yankees. Moving into the next game on the board, we talked about this briefly already. We have Cody Bradford and the Texas Rangers taking on Trevor Williams and the Washington Nationals. So, Bradford, pretty talented young arm. He is dirt cheap here, 4K on DK. I mean, whenever you see these pitchers that are 4K, they're at least somewhat tempting. Um, I don't know. For me, I don't know that I want to get there. I think I'd rather pay down for bats. We don't see him rating all that well in the model here. Drawing a little bit of ownership, but not enough to really make me second guess my own thoughts. And I, I don't know. He's talented. He's young, but as not so dangerous as this Nationals lineup is, they also really don't strike out much. So they're not offering much upside, which means his margin for error is very slim, even at 4K. So I won't get to Cody Bradford here. On the other side, we have Trevor Williams, who I have zero interest in, and we already talked about how Texas is one of the best stacks on the board. I'm going to talk through Rangers versus Williams. We're going to favor the left-handed hitters, but no surprise there. Just pulling up some of his numbers. Yeah, so I mean his splits aren't as severe as seasons past. Last year he had a 196 ISO to lefties, 136 to righties. This year it's actually flipped a bit, 180 to lefties, 255 to righties. So I still favor the lefties, excuse me, slightly. But all bats look good here, honestly. And I think if we click over to the batters page, and we pull up Texas, we'll see that there's going to be a good mix of righties and lefties towards the top of the model. But yeah, the model pulls stats for the last calendar year, so no surprise Seager at the top, as I mentioned, one of the best bats on the entire slate. But after him, we're seeing righties Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Ezekiel Duran, I believe is a switch hitter, then Josh Jung, Nate Lowe, the lefty. So really, this entire order is appealing here. We see that team total climbing over 6, which is going to be one of the best numbers on the slate. They rank 2 in OF index, 1 in ISO, 6 in WOBA, 2 in team total. So the Rangers against Williams certainly a stack we're going to want to get to. Again, I don't really have much interest in Bradford. He is cheap enough on DK to maybe consider as an SP2 if you're loading up on bats, but that's a very, very risky proposition, and I just don't have much interest in Nationals bats either. Moving into the next game, we have Daniel Lynch and the Kansas City Royals taking on Aaron Savale and the Cleveland Guardians. So Lynch has been better than expected this season, I will say. He's still allowing some power in certain matchups, but he's been better than expected. The K rate's really not there, which means we don't have to consider him in fantasy, but at the same time, he has been good enough that Cleveland's not really going to pop in the model, so we don't need to dig too deeply into that matchup. That one's kind of a wash. On the other side of things, we do have Savale taking on the Kansas City Royals. This Royals offense just hasn't been very good. Projected starting lineup today: 143 ISO, 301 WOBA, 24% K rate against right-handed pitching. So it's not insane to consider Savali here, especially as an SP2 on DK, where you could use him in that second pitcher spot. Maybe play an option with much higher upside alongside him, because while I do like the matchup for him and he has been decent, he has just an 18% K rate this season. So Savale, I guess you can get to. I'm gonna write him down, but limited K upside versus the Royals, but fine as an SP2 on DK. Um, but yeah, really not an exciting play by any stretch on a 12-game slate, but he should do a good job limiting damage here. Moving into the next game on the board, we have Luis Medina and the Oakland Athletics taking on Brennan Bernardino and the Boston Red Sox. On my other screen here, I'm looking over, just pulling up Bernardino's game logs, just trying to see how deeply into games he's been going. Yeah, he's just the opener here. This is going to give way to a bullpen game. I do not know yet who's getting the bulk of the innings for the Red Sox, but I'm not going to have much interest in them. And at the same time, while the Red Sox bullpen isn't all that great, I do think they're good enough that I don't know that we're going to get to Oakland aggressively. They're popping in OF index, but I think that's under the assumption that Bernardino is going to get more innings than just one. So it's a tough call to make right now. I don't think it's insane to go to some Oakland bats. I don't have interest in any of these Boston pitchers, but at the same time, really no priorities from that side of things. On the other side, though, we have Boston as the top stack on the entire slate. Medina's been mostly terrible this season, allowing a 248 ISO to opposing hitters, 381 WOBA, 292 to the righties. So we're actually going to favor the righties here. But I will say he's been pretty bad against lefties as well. So Red Sox bats versus Medina. And the bullpen behind him, if they do get to Medina, isn't very good. But favor the right-handed hitters and then add Devers in there too. I think he's a solid option, but really you don't need to discriminate. Both sides should be hitting the ball well in this matchup. We're likely to see Jaron Duran leading off, who's another solid lefty option who I think is going to draw significant ownership. Yoshida should be back in the lineup. This is a strong Red Sox lineup, a little bit healthier than they've been over the past couple weeks, and not as highly owned as maybe they might be on a smaller slate. Obviously, Texas seems to be drawing more ownership, but certainly one of the best stacks available we have tonight in Fenway Park with the wind blowing out. It is very humid here. 82 degrees in the forecast as well. Moving into the next game on the board, Luis Castillo and the Seattle Mariners taking on Hunter Brown and the Houston Astros. So pulling up some stats here on this one. Castillo, 28% K rate on the season is really solid. Obviously not the best matchup here against Houston, but they are striking out around 21% of the time against righties. They are dangerous, 160 ISO against righties, but yeah, I mean, this isn't the best pitching slate, honestly, for a 12 gamer. Kind of tough to find arms we really like. So off that alone, I'm gonna have some interest in Castillo. Tough matchup versus Houston, but at the same time, he's certainly viable at a reasonable price. 9,400 on DK, 9,700 over on FanDuel. On the other side of things, we have one Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown, 27% K rate this season, limiting opposing hitters to a 130 ISO, 310 WOBA. No surprise that he's ranking as one of the best arms on the slate. A little bit cheaper than Castillo, 9,200 on DK, 9K flat over on FanDuel. So Hunter Brown, really strong play here. Um, he has a lot of K upside. So not only is he showing the 27% K rate this season, the Mariners' projected lineup, while they do have some power, are showing a near 26% K rate against right-handed pitching. So yeah, some risk. He is a young arm. Seattle does have some power, but Brown has a lot of K upside here, and he's one of my favorite arms on the slate. We see that reflected in the ownership. He's going to be pretty popular. So if you do go to him, make sure you're getting different with the rest of your lineup. But really tough not to like Hunter Brown pitching at home tonight against a free swinging Mariners offense. Moving into the next game, we have Cole Irvin and the Baltimore Orioles taking on Bailey Ober and the Minnesota Twins. So I don't expect we see Cole Irvin anywhere towards the top of the model. Yeah, he's actually right there at the bottom. Um, Bailey Ober, though, floating around that top five, top 10 zone. This Orioles offense has been outstanding. They went off for 2 touchdowns, I think, against the Yankees last night. Ober, decent K upside, but at the same time, this really isn't a matchup I'm rushing to get to him. I mean, at low ownership on DK 8,300, I'd consider him, but personally, there are better spots, in my opinion. But we do need to talk about the Twins bats on the other side of things. Not ranking as highly as expected. Generally speaking, they are better against left-handed pitching. Irving has had trouble at time against right-handed bats, and there is some righty power in this Twins lineup with guys like Buxton, Farmer, Correa, even Solano, Miranda. So I don't mind the Twins here. Definitely favor the right-handed hitters versus Irvin, but yeah, they're kind of boom bust. I think we do see them climbing the model throughout the day, but as things stand, they're not really a priority. But I would rather play Twins bats here than anything else from this game. Moving into the next game on the board, we have Andrew Abbott and the Cincinnati Reds taking on Corbin Burns and the Milwaukee Brewers. So two of the better pitchers on the slate here. We see Abbott popping as the top arm on the slate, which is a little bit surprising to see, but also not when you consider the Milwaukee Brewers strike out nearly 25% of the time against lefties. Very low ISO and WOBA, 140 ISO, 307 WOBA. And Abbott's been outstanding. 29% K rate this season, holding opposing hitters to a 102 ISO, 225 WOBA. And he's not as popular as I thought he'd be. I mean, he is expensive, 9,900 on DK, 10.6 over on FanDuel, certainly pricey. But Andrew Abbott is one of my favorite arms on the board. Big time upside, just making some notes here. And yeah, I think he's reasonably priced, reasonably owned. I'm going to be getting to a lot of Abbott here. I really don't have any interest in the Milwaukee Bats. On the other side of things, we have Corbin Burns. He's been a little bit volatile this season, still a 23% K rate, still holding opposing hitters to a 283 WOBA. So he hasn't been bad. It's just tough to get excited about any arm against this hot Reds offense right now. I don't think we're going to see the Reds popping too highly in the model. Yep, towards the bottom there. But at the same time, I mean, it is enough for me at least to have some pause when rostering Corbin Burns. So I'll go ahead and add Burns to our list of arms to consider, but he's very risky against Cincinnati. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have Jordan Montgomery and the St. Louis Cardinals taking on Dylan Cease and the Chicago White Sox. Another spot with pretty decent arms. I mean, we see Cease and Montgomery both kind of popping towards the bottom half of that top 10. I'm going to pull up some numbers here on them. But yeah, I mean, historically, both these teams hit lefties better than righties. The White Sox are getting a lefty in this matchup. Lewis Robert is one of the better bats on the entire slate in terms of how they profile in their respective matchup. Really, really do like Robert here. But let's take a look. Chicago, yeah, floating around the top 10, ranking top 10 in OF Index, ISO, and WOBA. So the team total should keep their ownership down, but I do actually like White Sox bats here versus Montgomery. And if you do go to White Sox bats, definitely get Robert. Robert is a priority. And then favor the right-handed hitters. Montgomery hasn't been bad, um, But yeah, I don't know. Very inconsistent. And on a 12 gamer, if we're going to get a very low on White Sox offense, we're seeing them sub 20% aggregate on both sites. That's enough for me to consider them in large field tournaments. Can't call them safe. I mean, they are inconsistent, and Montgomery has had a few nice games this season. I think last time out against the Yankees, he actually had a really good game. Or was that Jameson Taillon? I know they both had some vengeful starts. Yeah, it was Montgomery last time out. 6 Ks, quality start. Won 6 innings, got the win, only allowed 2 hits. So Montgomery's in good form, but at the same time, like I said, this White Sox offense is better, I guess, left-handed pitching. So I do have some interest in White Sox bats. Probably wouldn't get to Montgomery here. He is reasonably priced, though. I don't think it's insane, but I can't call him a priority. On the other side, we do have Dylan Cease, who's also been pretty inconsistent this season, but Cease has a very high ceiling, 27.4% K rate, but he's allowing a near 160 ISO to opposing hitters, so he's about as volatile as it gets. Very high ceiling, but a very low floor. This Cardinals offense better against lefties, but Cease, I mean, he does allow a lot of power, so we are seeing around a 174 ISO for the Cardinals in this matchup, so they're floating outside the top 10. I probably don't get to them here, but I would probably rather get to Cardinals bats than I would Dylan Cease. He does have some upside, but yeah, this is one of those matchups. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see either lineup do well. It wouldn't shock me to see either arm do well. But at the same time, I mean, 12 gamer, do we really need to make those tough decisions? I'd rather just go elsewhere. Which segues into our next game here. We have Rich Hill and the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on Zach Gallen and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Gallen, he came out really strong this season, floundered a bit. It seems he's slowly starting to return to form. Did allow 4 earned runs last time out against the Angels, but he also struck out 12. So he is showing solid upside again. I do like Zach Allen here against the Pirates, who are getting healthy. They did just get Brian Reynolds back. It sounds like a Brian Hayes is back in the lineup. I think he was last night. So they're about as healthy as they've been all season. Obviously, still no O'Neill Cruz, but he's not going to make a return anytime soon. But Gallen, 27% K rate, holding opposing hitters to a 277 WOBA, 124 ice, so plenty of upside here. So Zach Gallen against Pittsburgh, some risk, not the best matchup by any stretch, but I do like him. Going to go ahead and write him down. Solid upside, but yeah, I mean, he has been allowing runs back-to-back starts where he's allowed 4 earned runs. So some risk here, but I do think he has enough upside to carry that price tag. On the other side, we have Rich Hill. Rich Hill, very cheap on both sites. He does have these outlier games where he does look really good, but for me personally, I have zero interest here against the Diamondbacks offense. It sounds like Corbin Carroll is going to be out tonight, which does hurt the upside of these D-backs, but at the same time, they are going to rank as one of our best stacks on the board. 5th in OF Index, ISO, and WOBA, 3rd in team total. They got Kyle Lewis back, so he's a nice righty bat in there. That should help kind of dampen the loss of Carroll. But Marte looks great here. Christian Walker, Longoria, if he's in the lineup, Carson Kelly, just a ton of guys with high ISO rates against left-handed pitching. And while Hill has been decent, generally pitches to contact. So I do like the Diamondbacks a lot here. First, Rich Hill. And we're certainly going to be favoring the right-handed hitters. I think other than McCarthy and maybe Alec Thomas at the bottom of the order, we see only righty bats here. So Arizona looks great even without Corbin Carroll. Really, really do like them. And Zach Allen's fine as a high upside arm. Moving into the next game, we have Justin Verlander and the New York Mets taking on Yu Darvish and the San Diego Padres. So Verlander, cheap on both sides, but he hasn't really been great. This is obviously a tough matchup against the Padres here. But last time out, did get the quality start, did go 7 innings, 6 Ks, 4 hits, or 5 hits allowed. But yeah, I mean, Verlander has been looking better lately. I don't think it's insane to consider him, but at the same time, really not a great matchup. But the price is conducive to rostering him in large field tournaments. On the other side, we have Darvish, who is allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 straight starts. Really not in good form. I think the All-Star break should serve him well. It seems like he's getting pretty tired right now. So the Mets are actually a stack I consider um, in large field tournaments. They're going to be low owned against Darvish. And yeah, against Darvish, excuse me, Mets versus Darvish. Um, it's kind of a boom bust play. Definitely a high risk, large field type of play. But I'd rather play Mets bets than I would you, Darvish. On the other side, I'd rather get to Verlander. But it's tough to get excited about him. He's risky versus the Padres here. So just making some notes. Excuse me. Was waiting for some stats to load. But yeah, not the best spot for anything really. I don't mind Mets bats. Don't mind Verlander, but it's tough to trust either. Moving into the next game, we have Griffin Canning and the Angels taking on Tony Gonsolin and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Canning's been really good. Um, I do have to say, but at the same time, I mean, can you trust any arm, especially kind of a middling arm against this Dodgers offense? I don't think so. Dodgers ranking third in our model today, third in OF index, second in ISO, second in WOBA, fourth in team total. They have a 204 ISO against righties. That is their projected starting lineup, 340 WOBA. And I'm counting 3, 4, 5 hitters here with a better than 220 ISO against righties. So while Canning has been good, I mean, he's not the type of arm we really have to shy away stacking against. Pulling up some stats on him, as good as he's been, he did struggle last time out against Arizona. Did not look good that last start, allowed 5 earned runs. So I'm going to get to some Dodgers here for sure. Going to go ahead and write them down. Clear upside. Obviously, they're pretty expensive. If we do go to Dodgers, I do slightly prefer the righties just because Canning has had reverse splits, allows a lot of power to right-handed hitters. So JD Martinez would be a priority. He's locked in right now. Mookie Betts, Will Smith, all strong plays. But I mean, if you're mixing in the lefties as well, guys like Freeman, Muncy, Hayward, even Outman, Peralta, all fine plays. But I'm going to favor the righties here, just given Canning's historical stats and his reverse splits. Tony Gonsolin on the other side hasn't been bad, but really no K upside. Mike Trout is out for the Angels. I believe Anthony Rendon is as well. But I do still have Moniak and Otani who hit righties really well. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't really have much interest in Angels bats, but I also really don't have much interest in Gonsolin here. I'm just checking to make sure he's not popping too high in the model or anything like that. Where is he? I can't even see him. Oh, there he is. Yeah, right under Jordan Montgomery, ahead of Justin Verlander. Yeah, this is not really an arm we have to consider. At the same time, I'm not rushing to Angels bats. Obviously, with Trout being out, hurts the upside of the stack. But if you want to use Moniak and or Otani as one-offs, I do think they're certainly viable here. Moving into the last game on the board, we have Austin Gomber and the Colorado Rockies taking on Ross Stripling and the San Francisco Giants. So first clicking over to the pitcher page, I mean, Gomber, he was actually decent last season, better than expected. And then as the season kind of wore on, he was tougher to get to. Um, but yeah, I mean, the start of this season, he's been struggling. It seems like he's rounding into form though, so I'm really not rushing to get to Giants bats here. I wouldn't be shocked if they profiled well just because of the terrible numbers earlier in the season, but a lot of those are in Coors Field, and yeah, we don't see Giants popping anywhere near excuse me, the top of the model. And then we got Stripling on the other side. It is a good matchup against the Rockies away from Coors, but he's not a guy who usually pitches deep into games, only going 3 to 5 innings in most of his starts. Not a ton of K upside either. So, well, I respect these arms enough not to really want to get to the bats. I also respect the bats enough, or just really don't like the arms enough to want to get to them. So this game's kind of a wash. If anything, maybe a little bit of Gomber and super high risk large field stuff, but that's kind of an insane play. Maybe a late slate play if you're someone who plays the late slate. But for me personally, I really can't call that a priority. But let's pull up our note file now. Talk through the pitchers first. I mean, we have Abbott here versus Milwaukee. Big K upside. One of my favorite arms on the slate. A little bit lower owned than he should be. Hunter Brown, some risk against a Seattle offense that does have power, but also an offense that strikes out a lot. So they got nice upside. Zach Allen, pretty inconsistent lately, but he's coming off a start where he had 12 Ks, so we know he has a high ceiling. Don't mind him. Castillo, tough matchup against Houston, but one of the more talented arms on the board. I think some people are going to play Rodon here. I don't think he goes more than 5 innings, but I don't know. If we get word that his pitch counts in the 80 to 90 range, maybe you get to him in a favorable matchup against the Cubs. He has looked really good in his rehab starts. Aaron Savali, limited K upside, but cheap enough to consider as an SB2 on DK. Corbin Burns, bad matchup here against Cincinnati, very risky. Same with Verlander, very risky against San Diego, but I think they are affordable enough that you can consider them. For me personally, if I'm picking any arms today, it's probably Abbott, then maybe Brown if I could fit them. Also like the Abbott Savali pairing. Like I said, Savali, not much K upside, but you might not need it. He should be able to pitch deep into the game here. He's done a good job limiting damage. But yeah, probably Abbott Brown, my favorite pairing. But yeah, keep an eye on price. And if you're loading up on bats, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to fit two of those high-priced arms on DK. But top stacks, we get the Red Sox here against Medina, favor the right-handed hitters, but obviously play Devers. I didn't write down Jaron Duran, but if he's leading off, I like him a lot as well. D-backs versus Rich Hill, obviously favor the right-handed hitters against that lefty. Dodgers against Canning, like both righties and lefties. He has historically been worse against the righties, though. We got the Rangers against Williams. Both righties and lefties look great. Twins favor right-handed hitters versus Irvin, but they're very boomer bust. The model doesn't really agree with me on that one, but I do think we see them climb throughout the day. Then we have White Sox against Montgomery. Robert has been one of the best hitters in baseball. Love him as a one-off if you're not going to stack the White Sox, but if you do, definitely favor the right-handed hitters. Then Darvish, who's allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 straight starts. I think the Mets are a sneaky option here if you're looking for upside. So, as always, my name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That lets us know that you want to see more of this free content on a regular basis. If you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. Sign up today. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone. Have a great weekend. Take care. Make some money. Good luck.